This is Chance and Dustin here with the man himself, Jon Schnepp, at Salt Lake Comic Con. Mr. Schnepp has been involved in a variety of projects, especially with Cartoon Network. What were you involved in with Metalocalypse?
Well, I created the characters with Tommy Blatcha and Brendan Small. They came to me after they came up with the idea to do a death metal band. And so I basically designed and came up with Murderface, Nathan Explosion, Squiz Scar, Squiggle, Toki, Pickles, what they were going to look like.
Cool.
As well as some of the other characters like Nubbler and Senator Stampingston and Cardinal Ravenswood, like a bunch of those characters. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I directed the TV show for 4 seasons, so literally worked on it for almost 10 years, like 9.5 years, and it was a really great experience. I loved. I was also edited. I didn't take credit as an editor most of the times, but I edited all the music videos that I actually direct. Any episode I directed.
Yeah.
Would do a ton of compositing, storyboarding. So I was very involved in the creative side of it.
All right.
So.
Before that, you did music videos and stuff for bands in the 90s. Can you give us a real quick rundown of some of that?
Yeah, well, I worked on a ton of music videos with this company called H-Gun, where I did a lot of animation and background stuff. I mean, there was a couple different music videos. I was in an Ozzy video with this band called the Infectious Grooves. The song was called Therapy.
Yeah.
I acted in that. I played a mad scientist.
Suicidal Tendencies guys.
Yeah, those dudes, Mike Muir and stuff. And I was acted in a lot of music videos. I'm in an Iron Maiden video. I'm in a Metallica video. I'm in 2 different Melvins videos. And then I built a lot of props actually for a band called Therapy. I built this oil water rig that was used. I did what was this? Courts of Empire. I did some weird animations for them, and then slowly segued into getting into animation, editing, and art direction with MTV, and then going into Space Ghost Coast to Coast. I edited about 20 episodes of that in the late '90s.
Which, thank you for how bizarre that show was.
Oh, you're
so
welcome.
Awesome.
I pushed the limits of bizarre. I remember he was on the phone once and I had his hand start floating away. And Lazo was like, Schnepp, why do you have his hand floating away? I was like, because it's funny. He's like, all right. So it's I would just try weird shit visually all the time. And of course, the writers I worked with were incredibly funny. They would rewrite all the dialogue. I've done not a ton of music videos myself as a director. I'm finishing up a video that's taken me a really long time just because I've been working on The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened, and just been going on tour myself. But I'll have basically this music video for this band Pilgrim. They're like a doom metal, kind of gloom metal, death metal band. And the song is called The Paladin, so it's an all D&D based, all green screen freak fest, so it'll be a lot of fun, but it's just a ton of work. So that should be coming out at the end of this month, end of October, just right around for Halloween.
Cool.
And then some of the other bands I've done was Forbidden. I've done Exodus. I've done 2 different videos for that band. So and of course almost 25 music videos for Death Clock.
Awesome.
I did almost all the music videos. If you saw them in concert, those were my music videos. So it's basically I was able to make my own heavy metal movie by doing that.
You did the video that they did on the script.
Yeah,
nice.
Basically anything you saw on the screen, those I'd say 90% of them were mine. So.
Another claim to fame more recently is The Death of Superman Lives, which is what you're here promoting.
Yeah.
I got that the day that it was released online. I was really excited about it. I'm sure you're kind of burned out on talking about it, but just kind of a Reader's Digest of sort of what was your motivation of doing that.
Well, it's a project that I never saw as a project. It was really just something that interested me over the years. I would it wasn't even a project. I just collected art in a folder. I'd be like, what else popped up for Superman Lives? Because it was a science fiction kind of stranger take on Superman, and all the versions that they had made over the years. I only made one in between Superman 4 and Man of Steel. It was Superman Returns, and that was just not what I wanted. So it made me think back more about that Tim Burton Superman, and I just was collecting art, and then I met one of the artists who was a designer, Steve Johnson, and then after that, I just was out having dinner and mentioned it, and some friends were like, you should do a documentary, and I was like, nah, and they said, I just raised money to do a cartoon on Kickstarter. Successfully, I raised $175,000 the year before, and they were like, hey, why don't you use Kickstarter? And I was like, nah, and then that idea all of a sudden was no one else is going to make this documentary, and I would actually like to know what happened. So Yeah. Why not try it?
Sure.
It's something different for me. I felt really confident as a director, but I'd never made a documentary before. So I kind of thought, well, it will only take me 8 months. It actually took me 3 years. But it's out now. I finished it, and it's getting rave reviews. I think it's 89% Rotten Tomatoes. I guess that's what people care about now is Rotten Tomatoes.
Right.
So I'm like, thank God it's the highest rated Superman movie ever.
You mentioned this last night as well, but something that I've noticed is almost a phenomenon on social media is that if something is not spot on perfect, it'll get completely demolished on social media.
Yes.
And that almost sort of creates, I think, a detriment to where we're not going to see a whole lot of chances being taken.
Well, yeah, the studios feel like, oh, we don't want to spend $100 million and have a $9 million opening weekend because everyone's pre-hating on it before it even comes out. That's the power of the internet that we have right now. I mean, we've seen it happen. Like I'd mentioned, Heath Ledger as the Joker, Ben Affleck as Batman, but usually
Michael
a studio,
Keaton.
Michael Keaton as Batman, and then the hatred for Nick Cage as Superman. But it's like, it's one of those things that, you know, if the studios buckle and listen to like fans, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like they heard fans saying we want a Deadpool movie. That was smart, but I don't think the opposite usually is good. When people complain about something, they're complaining from a reactionary standpoint.
Sure.
It's like don't change the thing that I love. Don't take the underwear away from Superman, or don't cast that person. I have an idealized version of Superman in my head. And that's the thing you should never listen to. As a creative person, you got to trust your gut. If you're working on something, it doesn't matter what other people think. It'll come out, and as long as you made something that's really good, I mean, that's what I mean. You have to be confident in what you're doing, and when you're working on a movie, there's all these other people. There's writers, there's directors, there's producers, there's actors, there's costume designers, production designers. Everyone's working on this thing to make it really good. So, I mean, that's kind of like you have to just trust your gut, and I'm glad. Like, I know when Ben Affleck was cast as Batman, they gave him this, like, you know, this book that was like, this is what you have to prepare for, and all this hatred of other people, and like, you're gonna get bombarded, they're gonna make fun of you, and he's like, I'm ready for it. Yo,
a lot of that
is
bandwagon too. You know?
Oh yeah.
And like you mentioned last night, you made a very good point, and the proof is in the pudding with Hugh Jackman, where it's like, oh, Hugh Jackman, he's 6'4", he's this, you know, good-looking, pretty boy guy, and then now all of a sudden there's all this love for Hugh Jackman.
People are crying about him, like trying to retire. He's been like Wolverine 7-8 times. Now they're like, don't ever leave us. It's like, oh, where were you in like 1999? Yeah, right. It's like, so that's how it works.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the fanboy and how that kind of creates this uproar, which kind of sort of lends us to a couple of other things that we talk about on the podcast. One of those being like gender equality kind of in the culture, and also the representation in the media, the nerd kind of media. Right. So what's your stance? How is nerd culture dealing with that issue in your eyes?
I think it's really accepting now. I mean, especially in nerd culture, it's like gay, black, any color, race, any religion. It's all kind of blending together in a true melting pot kind of way in fan communities, especially communities sci-fi, fantasy, comic books. All these were always at the forefront. Look at Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek. He was addressing social issues in the 60s that wouldn't be allowed on television, but you throw it into the future and make it an alien. Now you can actually talk about real social issues. I think that's always been the case with anything that's fantasy or creativity.
Twilight Zone is a great example.
Twilight Zone is another great example. So I mean, the world we live in now, we're basically, we as fans, we as geeks, nerds, the people are making fan fiction, the people are making real science fiction, real fiction, people are making television, people are making movies, people are writing books, people are writing comic books. We're the ones who are actually pushing creativity and intelligence. And it's like, it's a sad world that we live in now, where you have somebody like who's willing to actually listen, not only listen, but possibly vote for Donald Trump. I mean, it's almost like, we live in idiocracy, and it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for our culture. So luckily, when I come to science fiction conventions, comic book conventions, fantasy conventions, I'm not embarrassed. I'm like, these are my brethren. These are actually people who think and have an idea of creativity, sensitivity, empathy, being human.
Right. Well, what I've noticed about that, to go along with what you're saying, is I noticed that media at large panders to the lowest common denominator. And I think that a lot of people not so much anymore, but would write comic books off as being silly and childish. But this is not the lowest common denominator of society. These are the people that kind of rise above that because they use a lot more critical thinking.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, I completely agree.
By
with
far,
that,
this is the the highest common denominator. HCD
Right,
is what
yeah.
this is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, when you come to conventions like this, you buy books, you buy comic books, you interact with other people who are like creating and having fun, using their minds to make things, to make statements.
Yeah.
So yeah, how I feel about it is like, also there's mashups going on all the time. Like there's mix and match. Like somebody's dressed like a Game of Thrones Deadpool, or there's like there's all these
Right, yeah.
tons of different costumes, and people are really having a lot of fun expressing themselves. I think we're a few years away from having a Black Spider-Man, Miles Morales, in television or movies. We've already had them in comic books for years.
Yeah.
I mean, comic books have always been the forefront of breaking grounds, I think, on
Yeah.
lots of different diversity.
As a journalist, I've always said that I feel like comic books have been an amazing work of art of mirroring or characterizing society, almost exaggerating society
Right.
too, and that you see that kind of like with Batman becoming a darker, more because the darker time calls for a darker Batman.
Right.
Speaking of comic books as a mirror, do you see, because you mentioned the Donald Trump and all that, do you see that mirror present in nerd culture and comic books specifically, or is that something that we're choosing as a culture to kind of ignore because it doesn't apply to us necessarily?
Well, I think we're ignoring it because it's too fantastical and unimaginable that it's actually real. Like whenever I read these headlines, I'm like, how can our society be this dumb?
Right.
It's boggling to the point of painful. So I think no one really addresses it here because it shouldn't even be addressed in modern society. These kinds of idiotic apes,
Sure.
who don't even understand how foreign policy works. They don't understand the military. They don't understand that there's so much around the world they don't understand.
Well, they know more about what's going on with Caitlyn Jenner than they do.
Yes,
current
it's a sad world we live in.
Sure.
So I try not to, think too much about that, and I try to hang out with smart and intelligent people and have fun.
Yeah.
So
Helps you become less jaded.
yeah, for real.
I've heard Kevin Smith talk quite a bit. I've never actually been in a room with him, but I watched his evening with Kevin Smith.
Sure.
And there were times where I was like, wow, this dude and Kevin Smith have to get along. And then he showed me parts of the documentary, and then last night we watched it again, and it's like, these guys have to be buddies. Did you guys like really hit that off?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that we're not going out and having dinner or
Right.
anything, but no, we
No
had
bromance.
definitely had. I think he's awesome, and we had a really fun time talking. Like we talked for like an hour after the interview, so we ended up putting that on the DVD because it was like, man, I didn't know you were filming that, but we were just talking about comic books and stuff. And he's just a really fun guy to hang out with. He's hyper intelligent, just a good guy, and really inspiring and empowering about what you want to do, what he's doing. It's always like he's like brings it back to like what you can do and what everyone can do, So he's just a really intelligent, fun guy. I love his horror movies that he's making right now. And Tusk was so fantastic. I can't wait for the other ones. And
After it was over, I think I just turned to these guys and I was like, what the fuck did we just watch? Like,
Right?
I didn't know how to take it.
right,
Like,
Tusk is like can mess you up, especially if you're expecting like a Clerks.
For
You're
like
man,
a week after,
Yeah.
he was totally messed up.
Yeah, it'll
So,
mess you up.
it was like a worm in my brain. I was like, I can't get that out of
And
my
is he
head.
still out there? Are they
Yeah.
feeding him the fish?
Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible.
I didn't get closure from it.
I know,
Like,
there's
what
no
is
closure.
going
That's some
on?
fantastic
Yeah.
credits. Like it's a That's a fun song with him out there in the back.
I wish they would have just killed him off so I could have gone home and slept on it.
No.
So do you have any interest, speaking of Smith, do you have any interest of writing for comics like he's done in the past? Or
I've written a few Death Clock comics when we published those through Dark Horse. I've done a couple of short stories through Boom's anthology series. Like I did a zombie tales, and I drew a Cthulhu tale. So I've always had my foot wanting to be a little more dipped into the comic book world. So I am actually pitching a science fiction comic to a couple of publishers right now. Yes, the long answer is I do want to do some comic books, but right now I'm more in the media world, so I'm going to probably do another TV series and a couple more movies before, or just try to do them in conjunction,
So Jared Leto's the Joker. What do you think?
I love it, man.
Yeah.
When I first heard it, I was like, what? That's crazy in my mind, and I was like, but he's such a good actor, it'll be fantastic. Then I saw that first picture with all the tattoos and stuff, I was like, that's a weird interpretation, but Why not?
Which is also getting a lot of backlash.
Yeah, well, it did get a lot of backlash, and then as usual, fans start coming around. I've already seen like 3 people dressed as that Jared Leto Joker here at Salt Lake City with the deranged, or with all the tattoos. And why? It's because it's a different version of the Joker. It's like a combination of trying to do something new culturally, like from how our culture is now, where everybody has tattoos, and then taking that and then grabbing the Dark Knight Joker from like the Dark Knight Returns, from Frank Miller's Joker, taking that kind of twisted version of the Joker.
I think it's going to be truly a psychotic Joker.
Yeah, so I believe so too, and I think it's exciting that we have these different versions of the Joker. We've got the Cesar Romero with the painted mustache, and we've got Jack Nicholson, we've got Heath Ledger. Now we're gonna have Jared Leto. So, and we might even have one in Gotham, that weird, creepy redheaded kid. He might be the Joker. Who knows? Yeah, we're gonna have a ton of different versions
Hamill,
of the Joker.
The greatest Joker ever.
Yes. Mark Hamill is obviously the Joker, the animated Joker.
Every time I read the books, it's his voice I hear.
Yeah, no, I know. Him and Tara Strong. Yeah.
Well, it looks like you got some folks that want to talk to you. I just want to plug your documentary again, The Death of Superman Lives. That was inspiring for me as somebody that has a lot of pet projects. Where can we find it?
You guys can find it. Just go to www.tdoslwh.com. Once again, that's tdoslwh.com. And that's just The Death of Superman Lives, what happened, all the first letters. It's a tongue twister. I had to teach myself to say that fast. Hey guys, go to www.tdoslwh.com. Bam, I did it. I would screw it up. But go there, and you could buy a digital download version, where you could just download it to your computer, watch it on any media that you want, and you own it digitally. Or you could buy a Blu-ray or a DVD, and we'll ship it to you within 2 weeks. I mean, it's a small operation. It's just me, Holly Payne, the producer, Rob Pierce, the executive producer. We're the ones running the ship right now. It's a like 3-person team, so we're the ones shipping it. So have a little patience. We're not Amazon. It's not going to show up in 3 days. Where's my Blu-ray? It's like going to take about 2 weeks. But and if you guys support it, because you're supporting independent film. We own the film. That's why we have it on our website. It's not going through any middleman or anything like that. So the money is helping us recoup money that we spent making it.
Excellent.
We crowdfunded the film, but we also end up going into some debt. So we're getting out of the debt by you guys paying for the film by buying the Blu-ray, buy the DVD. Or like I said, you could get a digital download, get the super pack, and you get the extra 9 hours of bonus features, like another 3 hours of Kevin Smith and me talking about really fun subjects, interviews with Grant Morrison, Mark Waid, all these different amazing comic book writers and artists that just we couldn't fit into the actual movie because we had so much just about the film. So there's all this extra amazing stuff, talking with fans about their feelings about Superman, just additional another 40-minute segment of them creating the suit. Like in the movie it's only 3 minutes. We made an expanded version of it because there's so much amazing footage that we have of the history of making this film. So it was a lot of fun.
Cool. So one comic book, if somebody, I don't read comic books, but I want to start, where should they start?
Boy, that's a rough one.
One though.
Just one. I would say the Watchmen graphic novel.
There you go.
Because that's a good starter kit. It's it's got different spin-off versions of a whole bunch of DC characters. It has the Superman, it has the Batman, it has all the Charlton characters like the Question and Blue Beetle. But it's like Alan Moore kind of doing a synthesis of everything and summing it up. I would say if I had another number one, I'd go read Miracle Man, another Alan Moore. Those are all out finally in trade paperbacks. Those are just good starters for because they're they're more adult. And so then you can go sometimes it's harder to just be read any, just try this comic book out. It could instantly turn you off. So that's why you go to these ones that you might have heard of a lot of times, just because it'll help people who maybe aren't that familiar with comic books. It'll put them on the right path. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Right on.